Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Hello everyone. Welcome, thank you for being with us this afternoon. Today we will talk about AI-boosted scams. I have the pleasure to have with us Antoine Bajolet from the group NR. You are here as a co-animator of this group. We also have with us Jean-Baptiste Roux, who is the VP International Sales from SoSafe, and Philippe Laudenau, Director of Cyber Strategy from Falcon. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon. So we all know that we have been facing for a long time now, and especially since generative AI, the creation of a whole new type of scams, talking about deepfakes, deep voice, vishing, all very nice things that we will talk here. This new technique using AI to generate and create voices, videos, pictures, photos that look very true, almost impossible to make the difference. You all have this case of a employee in Hong Kong, thanks to a CEO fraud technique helped with AI, received 24 million euros directly in her pocket. So yeah, you all know this kind of very sophisticated scam. It's very strong impact. So the question is concretely, what are the techniques, the channels from AI that are being used to feed this kind of scam? And what are the impacts also? We try to see a bit quickly, maybe in the second part of this roundtable, how we can prevent these scams. We have a technical solution from technology, but not only. So these are the topic that we mentioned today. I will start with you, Antoine. You lead within the Inclusive and a study about what the member perceived as being the main threats related to AI-boosted scams. So what are the main threats that they identified? What can you tell us from your investigation? Thank you very much. Well, hello everyone. In the RSIC space, we led a study with the members regarding the perception of risk from these AI-boosted scams. So we know there is a limited list of these scams, these threats that can be enhanced by AI. So phishing, spy phishing, CEO fraud with the impersonation, deepfake, deep voices, but also public threat with content created through AI, with an objective to hinder the reputation of a company, to penetrate within systems, plus the speed is really increased, and it's all boosted by AI. So we have different conferences that mention this AI, but what we wanted to see was the risks perceived by the SSI. So it seemed that between general phishing that will be increased and improved, and the scams, for example, for CEO frauds with COMEX, fictional meetings, the more critical threat identified by the SSA is a spear phishing. The capacity to generate spear phishing on a very high level from an email to collect context element from the social media and adapt the phishing technicals for spy phishing in mass. Also, maybe you know this phishing attack that we call Pickabot. Well, you had the whole content of email box and are being hacked, and the member that participate to this conversation receive new messages from this discussion, and they receive a response. And what we fear is that from this conversation, from the thread of conversation, they can create a complete phishing message within the context of the conversation and send it back with a malware. That would make this phishing campaign more credible and a lot more difficult to context, because the target would receive a message within a context that they will recognize, that will incite them to click on the link or to open attachment. So public threat and public destabilization is considered as less important. It will more have an impact. What is more threatening is all the information from a company coming from the social media, public communication that could be used through this information, through this element, to hinder my strategy on the long run and help a competition to go further and be faster and stronger than myself. So yeah, different level of risks depending on the type of scam. We can see two aspects. One technology is used to better lie, and the other one is to spread more. And these scams use a different technique. We talk about cloning, deepfake. All these techniques is also social engineering, trying to deceive the human brain. It is something that you know very well as So Safe. You published a study about this topic recently. What are the main trends that you could observe? What are these techniques that are being used to deceive, that are used for these scams? Yes, hello everyone. So just one element of context for those who don't know So Safe. You will soon. We are a cybersecurity awareness platform with 4 million users on a platform in Europe. So we are very aware of cybercrime. Maybe some of you have received our document exposing the big 8 trends for 2024. The first one is all related to AI. So of course it is a topic that we follow closely. Regarding what was just mentioned, I would like to say that indeed the big trend, most obvious one today, is all related to spear phishing. I think it's a very big topic. About this topic, that would be interesting to have your experience. We had some comparison to try to see what would be the impact of spear phishing through an AI generative like ChatGPT compared with what our expert could generate, because some of our experts generate this phishing situation. And that would be interesting to see what would be the efficiency of both elements. So we worked on it with a sample of collaborators and to see what would be the rate of click and interaction. So we compared, and unfortunately, I do not have a good news. Don't have good news is that click rate is very comparable. But what cannot be compared is the rhythm of creation from AI generation versus human. So of course, with AI, you can generate a lot more spear phishing initiative. A lot more than a human can generate. So what does it mean? It means that all type of phishing will be more and more customized, and we will have, for once and for all, be very acute about this topic, because it will become a common ground for all of us in terms of exposition to this type of initiative. So unfortunately, regarding the risk identified by RSSA, it is what we identified. They are very threatening, and do challenge you to detect it, because it's so relevant and so customized that it is very difficult to identify. So it is a general trend, and it will continue. Then we have new elements today that can help you to generate from a vocal sample a message totally customized. Within a few seconds sample, you can make anyone talk in any language, and it is really impressive. You can speak all the languages, and it can be used in a vishing attack, as you can imagine, calls simulated through voices created. And even today, we can see one MFA working on voice recognition, and it can be fooled. Then you also have to add everything related to picture manipulation. Once again, you've seen all these pictures that are really impressive. I saw one which really scared me, from a high Ukrainian political member saying that they spent a great night in Russia after the attacks that happened in Russia in the council, and we know that it's totally fake, but unfortunately it is very impressive. So today I'm very afraid of what could spear phishing could generate on very more specific aspect. With videos and audio, it will have a huge impact. And these scams and attacks from different types, they also use this AR system and also hallucinations. Can you talk about this, Mr. Ludenau? Because this phenomenon should increase with generative AI, so what are the risks? Hello, everyone. So actually, AI will be fed from databases. Once you provide it fake information, it's just like a child. If you give them wrong fake elements at the beginning, they will keep spreading it and have a bad judgment. So today, from the hacking I could see with AI, we have to support the developers with part of algorithm that we can find on GitHub, for example, that are fake, and through backdoors, which is very easier for a hacker, once they have the key, to get in, settle, and then misbehave. So today we have this difficulty to see if the information that is given to me is true or not. Is it bad or is it not? We all have these different aspects. It can be whatever the language is, whoever is concerned, any kind of industry. And someone who is malicious can today use AI. Unfortunately, humans are very creative when you try to act in a malicious way. The small nuance I would bring with AI is that, as we flagged today, it is so fast today, it is impossible to grasp. So today, to creating fake messages, fake pictures, fake information, it's so easy. And what are the big trends? What can we imagine? Because we are at the very beginning of this movement, so what could be the evolution? Well, in this case, I will quote Winston Churchill, prepare for the worst, unfortunately. The only limits are the human brain. It will create new machines that will imagine new way to act in a malicious way, so the power is exponential and it won't stop. So once again, we have to find a way and keep remembering that AI is a great tool, but like any tool, like any nice tool, there is always a bad use from its use. Antoine, we mentioned it with Philippe. Beyond the threats, external threats, we also have risks related to bad use or careless use coming from the inside. What are the risks you could identify in this study? So we go away from the pure AI-boosted scams regarding the risks boosted through the use of AI. And here we are mentioning the risks related to the internal use of AI. My coworkers and even myself cannot anticipate all the risks that have nothing to do with malicious, but also only with the use. A very careless, let's say, or not controlled use of generating AI. When AI needs a big load of data, at least generating AI, and it will be particularly relevant when we feed it with a lot of data. The problem is when I use this output of AI general coming with all the data of my company that I mixed up without any discrimination, public, private, and confidential data to feed my model. And if I use this same model, for example, to answer in a chat, customer service chat, and I put confidential data within this method, my customer service could answer with confidential data. And it is a very risk that is difficult to anticipate because users themselves have problems classifying the data they use. So if you have to ask the AI to be careful regarding this type of data, yeah, it can be very complicated. About the use of AI, some things can represent a risk not related to scams. For example, I use generating AI in marketing to create visuals, but I don't know that AI reused intellectual property copyright from an artist, which is very careful regarding the use of their art, and this person will attack me because I did not respect their copyright and I used their art, their intellectual property. But from my side, what I did is only use a public tool that I thought that could use it from the public domain with generation of visual, but it's not the case. Another threat is one related to, for example, forbidden uses for taking legal decisions to give a reduction, a promotion. For example, here Canada had a problem with that, to grant a loan or not. Or insurance, for example, in our domain, that would be based on data based on this person. And some jobs, some professions would be active in shadow hire, as we heard. And they wouldn't know. So it would lead to a violation of laws. Today in RSSI, in development teams, the use of code generated by AI is considered as a less important risk by RSSI, considering that dev will control the boot code that they integrate. And I would be less fast. You didn't seem to agree. On the contrary, I totally agree. And which is a problem is that today the number of information. I work today with a company working with the protection of information, so it may seem a bit old in cyber because we talk about the protection of content and not about the container and not the content. But today, sensitive content is given to AI, and we ask AI to, for example, provide medical or law analysis. I worked in health, so I know what I'm talking about. And if there is an hallucination, a bias, or anything, imagine the consequences. And data leak for all companies. There isn't one company that is better than the other one. All the companies, you can just Google it. You'll find very confidential documents, and it's very scary. People focus on a sensitive company, but sensitive information from a company, but remember that AI feed on data. And what Antoine said at the beginning is that you want to work in spear phishing. It's so easy to find confidential information, to see who the right person to target with what topic. You shouldn't be surprised when you see this spear phishing working, because you find the topic, you find the right people, you find the right sources and reference. So of course it works for the hacker.
Because finally, it's not only the case for this kind of fraud, it's also the usage, sometimes neglect that can be used without knowing for attacks in our type. So this is where your points both merge, Antoine and yours. They are not entirely linked, but they kind of meet. Did you want to react? I wanted to add on, because we are talking about the fact that IA is at the center of all discussions. As an organization, a company, and individual, we will have to rule what needs to be done and what needs to not be done. We'll have to respect some things and come back to the fundamentals of we all need to give sanctions to the person that needs to be corrected. We'll have to implement some governance rules and regulations. And so we will need to create a context that is favorable to the fact that data is exploited in the right way, and also to remind the individual who's a collaborator at some point or another that the border between the public and the professional and the private is not in everyone's mind, but the hackers are really there to actually take advantage of that, and they can then, threaten you. So the human behavior is something that needs to be reminded to everyone in terms of. So you talk about technology, what can it be? Because are we able to have this critical sense and this awareness, this teaching that we may be able to implement to the public? Will it be enough facing attacks that are more and more sophisticated and less detectable? Well, I think that this IA will be an opportunity to fast forward the awareness for our collaborators, but we will need to train them through simulations, but this is not where the challenge resides. We need to have a security policy in the company to have some really good awareness with our employees. We'll have to implement some things that they not only have to train, but they need to adapt throughout time. And this goes from, we'll ask you to do something, and then spontaneously you'll do something towards the right way. And then you will be part of security culture. It's not AI that needs that. We will have this need anyway without AI, but AI will be an accelerator, because if we don't do it fast enough, it's going to be catastrophic, because IA is fast. And we need to be really aware of this. We have to position ourselves. The challenge is security, is to change behaviors, and what do we need to implement in terms of, implementation, so that all of the employees work towards that security. What is necessary on the technology part? I don't think it exists yet, unfortunately, but I know there are some tests on some algorithm that could enable AI to counter AI. We're not there yet, but what would we need in terms of technology to face this threat? Is it a trick question? Well, even if there is some hope, under the cloud. There is hope, but the scams, AI boosted scams, will be within the same channels, spear phishing and all the basic things like domain repetition, sender. It's still valid, even though the content was boosted by AI. And if we expect an email from Microsoft that is not received by Microsoft, then we'll still be able to classify it as malware. So this is still, some basics. We need to have, this accompaniment. Also detection tools, because scams through AI have the same target. They still want to, penetrate a system. But then, there'll be like, the means will be, we are convinced that we need to reinforce existing measures that are valid against traditional phishing, but then, it goes through training, individual training, and then going back to the traditional process and procedures. And I'll keep on repeating that to my colleagues. If you have a doubt, please keep to traditional, like double check with your colleague. Is it that person that sent that email? Just get out of the office and knock on people's door, just please do that, back to the traditional, and go to the chief officer, financial advisor, in terms of like, if there's a transfer that was asked or not. I mean, unless you create a hologram in the vice president responsible for finances, so still the classical means of protection are still very meaningful, and maybe more meaningful to counter those attacks. I mean, it is our conviction that this is something we are sure about. Maybe something to give a bit more light on this. It's also to be reminded that we will ask a human to take a decision. And in this logic, the neuroscience says that we need to have a certain processing time. And if it's less than 30 seconds, it's probably not a good answer. So what does that mean? We will also have to accept the fact that we will have to have the workflow go slower. Everything is urgent. Everything is like late. And at some point, we have to implement some governance measures to give time for people to process information, develop their critical sense, go verify things, and to have an acceptable delay time. And that will allow for less errors. But let's not forget that we are trying to change human behavior. Unfortunately, to my understanding, there are fundamentals in terms of neuroscience that are just so much we can do. You wanted to add something? I'm going to go back to what one of my former teachers was saying, but in the digital world. A good user, a good IT worker, is someone that uses a pen and paper in some way, and that's actually you were asked to give answer to questions that were not asked, and that means that you need to take time to ask yourself the questions, have some sort of like reflection. And the human remains at the center. Let's not take the IA as a mean. It's just a tool. And just like each tool, we need to stay really smart And people that only use IA, it's just a catastrophe. And those humans that take more and more amplitude, Gartner was saying that 55% of scams were made through IA. Would you say that today there's a good understanding of those risks, and you will do you think that there is some understanding of this risk, and are there some reflections on those challenges? I'm going to answer personally because it is not part of the study. IA, in terms of accelerator of content production, potentially of support or of replacement for what could be first level support, helping content creation, a final redaction in terms of like a spell check, grammar check. Those usage are done, in terms of like AI predictive marketing sites or sales site in order to determine strategies for logistics. And on the other hand, even on the work side, there's a number of jobs that are afraid that they might be replaced by AI, outside of the scams, and they're starting to realize through a different mean that there is a risk on AI. And they ask questions and require more personally. Our department, marketing communication department, already has in their mind intellectual property of, are we still going to need graphic designers or Python in order to create visuals, and how can we walk hand in hand with those people towards IA usage instead of like being replaced to create visual documents? Is not to replace the person, but also to be able to actually use AI. So we don't have intellectual property like copyright. So anyone can use it again. So at least just in that field, the understanding of the risk of the AI is inducing lots of questions, and this appears in different jobs. The right usage of AI is a priority and a preoccupation for many employees. So it is a positive sign. I wanted to add testimony that we may have on our level is we have risk identification. Yes, definitely that is something that we talk about, and there's so much media about this. However, governance initiatives in the company, I'm not going to cite any of them, but they are not enough today. We definitely need to have less usage of those tools with a volume that is pretty considerate. It's 300 million users of AI. We forecast 700 million in the future. So if we continue this way, it's going to be catastrophic. So it is time now to find a governance. And as usual, do we wait for the government to take action and implement some regulations? I don't think so. We need to do on the company level to have our own responsibility and to start to have, some sort of grasps on the usage. And those examples, we had the case of Hong Kong, as we mentioned, probably many more. Can it be a way to better spread awareness for cyber in general? I think that I love fundamentals. We need to get back to risk analysis. If we only talk about threat is not the risk. It's a part of the equation. But going back to the impact is, in that way, we need to accompany. Schopenhauer say as long to each new thing, there are 3 steps. So we need to go hand in hand with this, and the governance means that we need to learn how to use that tool. We still need to have a risk analysis, explain the dangers. But for example, in the healthcare, when we start talking about digitalization, we know that there are going to be new jobs and jobs that are going to disappear. So we just need to, let's stay open to AI, but we just need to understand it. And we know that in the medical imagery, we know that AI is going to help us so much. It's going to add, a lot of expertise. But of course, we need to remain human-centered. Okay, so you talked about medical. What do you think the risk could be in terms of AI? Well, there's going to be scams that can be very dramatic, and it's been done already. Is to misdiagnose breast cancer in an image. It's something very, or maybe at the contrary, you can say, oh, this person, has poor health. We need to give, better treatment. But if you want to be fraudulent and deceitful, you can have companies that will sell molecules, and the AI will just trigger some false information. I mean, we can imagine a lot of bad things, but again, it's just a tool, and behind it is a lot of learning and the right usage of the tool. And unfortunately, you're always going to have some really, people with really bad intentions that will use it. Are there usage requests in particular that you think are very rememberable? I think that we covered all of them in what we said. We try to have our collaborators to really be very careful to any message, vocal or visual messages. We have to be very careful. And anything that is unusual is something that, you need to have critical sense and think twice. So yes, this is something we've already tackled. Today, I'm not going to say there's a lot more. There's enough. But not everyone is ready for AI, and we need to be very fast on how to teach people. Have you implemented measures already? But do you know if there are measures in process or governance that were implemented to counter this risk that is, pretty real? Indeed, it is the case. We have a colleague that will give us feedback on an AI chart on the usage of AI. These are ongoing, and some of them already have results. There are some coworkers that are already developing some solutions in their companies, and the SSI is very keen on those subjects. For some of those subjects, they are accomplished and delivered already. It's not ongoing, we have some results. And then if you have more requests, you can always ask, like development area. We are not there to stop or slower the AI usage. That it is not the right attitude. We need to go hand in hand with AI. It can be, the inclusion is risk examination is really important. It was asked by our CEO directly, so it is a subject that is very important to the main public. There's a lot of there are many questions that are being asked. The risks, just repeating ourselves, yeah. So we're going to talk more about how to go hand in hand with AI rather than like preventing it. And this is what we need to do in order to integrate AI. I totally agree. It is a subject that is going to be worked on a really, really high level. And if, it comes from the CEO, that's definitely a good sign. And then we need to have a lot of awareness on the users and also the main public, because we talk a lot about the negative parts, but there are some really fun things to do. What I really like to do in terms of awareness, ChatGPT point 3, the questions that were asked sometimes were really funny, and the answers given by ChatGPT were pretty interesting, and it was quite entertaining. ChatGPT 4 evolved. You ask the same questions, about who lays an egg, a cow, or, just like if you change the question, you'll see that there's some funny questions. And it has its own sense of humor, but still, keep your critical sense. What I'm worried is when people just take it for granted and they're like, oh, this is AI, it's the answer to all of my questions. But, it's also for children. You need to educate them and to keep this critical sense. And this is something we needed to have in the digital world, and we lost it. So I hope that our clients will keep that and get back to it. Maybe it's a little signal and a reminder that we need to get back to fundamentals. We still have a little bit time for questions, if anyone has questions. Can we create a parallel between the, when computers started with, can you compare that, with AI? Or people were saying, oh, it's going to replace and cancel a lot of jobs, and it was pretty scary. Is it something that you can compare? Like, we started having more training and having utilization white sheets. Is it something that you can create a parallel? Well, unfortunately, it's something we always need to do. We saw computers start, and yeah, it is the same context. Unfortunately, computers, it was, not accompanied very well. So today, again, in the digital, it's just an end mean and not a tool. And it's it's catastrophic, Having worked in administration, like it was pretty basic. Like you cannot just create a list of rules without questioning yourself. Is it smart? Does it make sense? So, of course, accompanying people with the usage is the main issue here. We never taught children how to use, a computer like the there is no course on teaching security, cybersecurity. It's really important. But today you see that in those lessons, they say, oh, go on AI. Oh, and they say, oh, the work they have to do at home is so simple because the teacher told us, oh, go on the AI website. And this is a catastrophe, and it's going to be really wrongly used if it's not if people are not accompanied with the usage. In order to replace like simple tasks or beginner's task, leaving the critical and expertise to the human, how can you generate the experts in a context where basic tasks are generated by AI? I'm going to try to answer. I think that we need to, well, the most important things is to have knowledge, and generative AI will give access to knowledge that we never explored in a really faster way. Now I think that education needs to bring a critical sense around those knowledges, in first to check if it's true, and second, if to capitalize on this. Because expertise is the fruit of knowledge over time and experience. And so the fundamentals of the teaching and what we expect from a human being to transform him into an expert is the same. But the verification of knowledge will need to be done in a different way. And I think that education needs to be revolutionized around a tool of this type. Right, but if as a company owner, those tasks we give to the junior employee, and this junior might just use AI. So how can we generate experts? Well, I don't think it's we should not replace all the junior positions by AI. This is not a subject to me. We need to imagine that we will add a value on top of what the machine can create. But yes, the juniors employee will need to be used, and they should not be replaced, and they should be able to become experts. What a junior does in a company today, it's not what he used to do 40 years ago. Today, we don't teach juniors how to use, rulers, paper, and pen. It changed. It evolved. We don't take, in order to work on a computer, you don't start with learning how to write on a piece of paper. So tomorrow, the juniors might be trained on how to use AI, and they would no longer learn, basic tasks that we do today. So will it be something negative because we have already stopped using some basic tasks? I think personally AI will be an added step. However, there will be experts that will need to teach AI how to do those tasks. And this is, the question of the egg or the hen. Who starts where? Who's the number one? But in the end, we will add a step. But the juniors will be a lot more productive than the juniors of today. It's just a time shift. Before writing, you used to teach people verbally, and then came the writing. So we can create a parallel with AI. I mean, you shoot yourself in the foot when, you start working with it. Sometimes when you don't know a subject, you need to start teaching it. And if you don't know how to teach it, you become an expert. That was kind of a joke. Are there any more questions? I think we actually tackled a lot of subject, and I think what we can say from this subject is beyond the different types of scams that we are starting to know and being aware of. The answers, we don't have technological answers. We talked about governance process to make things slower, which is a subject that we don't often talk about. So the human needs to go slower, and this is the conclusion, in cybersecurity, human is the last barrier. So maybe we can keep in mind all those points in this sequence. So towards governance and solutions is to slow things down. So thank you very much, all of you.